Hi, you guys. How are you today? I have a question for you. Do you ever feel insecure? I'm Linda Green, and I'd like to talk a little bit about feeling insecure. Let's talk about some of the things that create that insecurity, that feeling of not good enough, and some of the tips that might help us to fight that insecurity, because nobody wants to deal with that. But it happens to all of us. Insecurity can occasionally sneak into our lives, and it can be really frustrating and annoying. We don't want to stay there. So there are several reasons why people might experience some of this insecurity. So let's, figure out what those things are. Help shed some light on these emotions that we feel, because it's just human nature at times. So first of all, comparison can really create negative experiences in our lives. In our world, we're so interconnected and bombarded with all the glimpses of all the perfect people, all the wonderful ways that they are living their lives, the beautiful curated snapshots that, make everything look beautiful and just perfect. And it's easy to fall into a trap of measuring ourselves and our own self-worth against these perfectly polished representations of all the goodness that everybody else is living, right? And it can create self-doubt and frustration and that feeling of inadequacy. So past experiences can also leave imprints on our self-worth, and negative encounters, whether they're instances of being rejected, a trauma, a divorce, any of those things can really shape our intrinsic value, our own self-worth. So this can also lead to fear, to judgment, and then when we have those experiences, we really are seeking for validation everywhere. So striving to meet the standards that we see in others' perfect little world, the appearance, their cars, their success, their relationships, their trips, it can really create that imperfection in ourselves, and we have a hard time living up to these ideals, these perfect scenarios. And then we question our self-worth and our own values, our own abilities. And then that insecurity just really blows out of proportion. So we hear negative self-talk, we just bombard ourselves with that negative self-talk, that perception of not good enough, and then that just keeps multiplying, right? And it takes time, it takes effort and whatever to really build a healthy understanding of our own self-worth, and to get rid of those insecurities and doubts and those other challenges that we face. So remember that everybody's experiences are different, and we all have those moments of insecurity because we're human. So what we want to do is we want to acknowledge these things and the comparison. And let's work on that. Let's talk to our families. Let's talk to our loved ones. Let's help our own discovery, even with possibility of going to a counselor or somebody that can really help us to see the reality of all of this, and to help us to embrace our own qualities, our own uniqueness, and let's foster that genuine confidence in ourselves. So along with these things, I want to also mention a couple of essential oils that can help support us when we have these feelings of insecurity. The first one is pink pepper, and yes, it is a pepper, and it is the oil of intrinsic equality. It's a spicy oil, so I suggest using it with a coconut oil or a carrier oil of your choice. I like to use dōTERRA's fractionated coconut oil. So I just use a little bit of this. I pour a little bit into my hand, then I usually just take the bottle and tip it like that and mix it in together. And then I just put it on the bottom of my feet. Then I don't have to worry about, it being hot. But then of course you want to wash your hands so you get that hot off your fingers. So the negative emotions that this helps with, it helps us to address ourselves and being judgmental and being unequal or comparing ourselves. It helps us to recognize our judgments, whether that's self-judgment or judging other people, so we can recognize these tendencies, which will help us to address the issues. We got to know what's going on. Pink pepper helps us to recognize that comparison increases sorrow and frustration. So it will help us to realize our tendencies that we are comparing. This oil also helps us to be more accepting of ourselves and helps us to be more compassionate to ourselves and to others around us. It will help us to believe in our own goodness and in the goodness of others, right? So Cassia is the other oil that I really like to use, and it's a hot oil too. This is the oil of self-assurance. There we go. So this oil helps us to have gladness and courage. Like I said, this is also a hot oil, so just use it the same way I suggested with the pink pepper. Just use that coconut oil or your carrier oil of choice and put it on the bottom of your feet. So this oil will help us to address the negative feelings of being embarrassed, to being humiliated and worthless. It will help us get rid of those challenges. It helps us to discover our own value, our own potential, and to recognize our own intrinsic value and gifts and talents that we have. And it helps us to recognize so we don't compare ourselves to others, and to find more comfort around being with others, to feel more comfortable. So we want to recognize, like I said, our own value and our own potential. This helps us feel confident, valued, and more authentic. So these two oils, like I said, these are so good at supporting ourselves when we are feeling less than, we're comparing ourselves to all the beautiful people in the world that their lives aren't perfect either. Sure, they can come off as perfect, and yeah, some people are going to have different circumstances. They might have the ability to go on fancy trips and different things like that. But when we can find our own value and our own self-worth, then we don't need to compare ourselves. We can get rid of that negative self-talk there that just kind of holds us back and just creates the cycle even more. So using these oils, one or the other or both, can really help us to stop the negativity, to find our own self-worth, our own value, and therefore we can quit comparing ourselves and understand that we too have value. It may look different than somebody else's, but that's okay. We can still recognize our own value and accept ourselves in who we are. And if there's something that we do need to improve, maybe we want to explore a talent or something, so go do that. Find out how you can do that. There's so many things online that can help us to learn how to paint or draw or a ton of other things. So let's find our own self-worth, our own value. Use one of these oils to help support that as we're working through those challenges, to help us to recognize what we are doing so that we can address the issue. Got it? All right, so I hope you've enjoyed this video, and if you have, hit the like button and hit subscribe so you can get more tips on managing emotions. Have a great day. Take care.